Hello folks, welcome to this week's edition of We Speak Tangent. I'm Michael.
I'm James.
And I'm Kat.
And this week we are speaking to Rachel Parker.
Welcome, Rachel.
Yes,
Welcome.
indeed.
Thank you for coming along.
Who is responsible for all the amazing cakes that we reference
Absolutely.
each and every week. Kat has the first question this week.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about what it is that you do?
So I'm the founder and CEO of the Frangipane Bakery, which is a gluten-free bakery, but it's also a social enterprise working to close the disability employment gap.
Fantastic.
We've nicknamed the it came into my head there. We've nicknamed this episode Frangipane.
Yeah,
I couldn't get it in my head.
yeah, because the cakes fuel all the tangents.
Yeah.
Indeed they do.
And Rachel, like I've spoken in the other podcasts and stuff, and you led this tiny brigade as such, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. I know we're here to focus on the other stuff in your business, but as somebody who personally I look up to and what you do, it's nice to get a chat with you inside a wee glass room here and try and pick your brains. But I see for the outset of the stuff you do, you're setting the bar for people like us. And
Absolutely.
I've openly said that I'm out in the wild, and again it'll touch base on the other thing. You really opened my eyes to the other side, that what can be achieved when you just have the right people. And, I guess that's why we're here today. Is like when you have the right tribe, and if anybody's listening, it doesn't matter how long it takes, but as long as you find your right tribe, and that when the time comes. And the one comment that you said to me, and it was just I say it all the time. I say it to everybody. You put your hand up and you said, "It's my turn to speak." It's no coincidence I'm the first one in. I have this rushing of the mind, but when compliments are due, it's proud to be sitting in here along with everybody else. Kat, Michael, and yourself is like it's quite an emotional
you are the
emotional
catalyst
journey.
of-
Yeah, you started all this,
Yes.
so I don't know where I was going with that, but we
I'm-
love Frangipane and Rachel is where I was going.
I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah,
as the
Probably.
episode goes on. Well, I think we will, and I think that the viewer/listener will hear in full some of the things that we've said, alluded to, but it'll be good because it'll be in front of the person that it is about as well. So, how long has the Frangipane Bakery been open?
So we've been trading since March, not this year, but last year.
well done.
But it's about 2 years since it started. Because we got an empty workshop premises that we then had to fit out with a commercial kitchen, so it took a while to get that sorted before we could start trading.
It's awesome.
And how does a neurodivergent, how do they set about doing what you do? Not giving away all your secrets, but how does one go about being a baker? Is it a baker? And making all these fabulous cakes, but then also with the business side there, as somebody who's newly been introduced to neurodivergence, as I imagine other people listening in would be. How does one go about setting that?
Well, I guess what has enabled you to achieve your vision?
It's all been around having the right support that I've needed at the right time. This isn't my first shot at running a bakery. So I started out when I lived in Oban back in 2016. And it wasn't until just a couple of years ago that it's now coming to fruition. It's slightly different now because it's now got the social enterprise element to it. And that was a conscious decision for a number of reasons, but partly because that then meant that I had a board and I wasn't by myself trying to set up a business. And so that meant that from the very start, I had more support around me to do what I was trying to do.
So we're finding out that it is important that the support needs to be there. That's something that we've discussed earlier. But obviously need to address the, I was going to say the elephant in the room, but not the small hairy gentleman that seems to be at your feet. Who's this?
This is Nico.
Nico, what breed's Nico?
Rescue.
Oh, Nico Rescue.
Yeah.
Aye. He's just sitting there quiet, and I thought I'd introduce him.
He has his
Well-
own unique brilliance, just
Yeah.
like the rest of us.
Welcome to We Speak Tangent, Nico.
I'm also convinced that Nico's neurodivergent.
By proxy.
Yes, you've been around people for long enough. You guess.
Oh,
That's what we're talking about.
on the move.
So, what in terms of you, can you give people a rough idea about your neurodivergence?
So when I'd been struggling in education and employment, in traditional education and employment, and with various mental health challenges as well. And it was my mental health worker that made the suggestion that I might be autistic. So I wasn't diagnosed until I was 25. So I'd been through school. I was at my second uni. Wasn't going to be my last uni, but at my second uni at that point. And yeah, it was the mental health worker gave me one of the screening tests for autism and didn't tell me what it was all about. I went home and had to Google the questions and then wait for 6 weeks because that was over the Christmas and New Year break. Came back and I was like, I've Googled everything. I've looked up all the things.
Yes, you are.
I know
also
what a
a
test
seeker
was.
of
I know how
facts.
to mark it as a psychologist, and I've looked up everything about how autism presents in women and girls and the differences between like the gender presentations.
Just on that point, it's still rarer.
Diagnosis wise.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's rarer to see both in diagnosis and in how people present. Certainly, when I was diagnosed, it was a very rare thing. So that's just how. It's not a trend, but that's how society has changed towards.
Yeah, I think we've talked before about the standard societorial average of how things present,
How
and I
did,
think that has shifted. So.
how did that change your life? Seems like that would have been a life-changing moment. And for anybody listening, there'll be people out there who will have their own life-changing thing. How did that, and if it's not too personal, how did that make you feel? What changed? Did you have to put things in place? What happened after that?
So I'd been on the waiting list for a while, and I finally got my assessment the day before I left Oban because I was about to move county and I would have had to go to the bottom of the waiting list in a new county. So they were able to get my diagnosis through.
Good.
And it was a massive relief. Like, not a surprise at all by that point because I'd read a lot. It made so much sense. It explained a lot of the challenges that there had been, and particularly around my mental health and going through CBT and the kind of belief that I wasn't trying hard enough to get better. If I just tried harder,
neurodivergent friendly. That
I
one.
would be all fine. And so there was then there was an explanation of why things were the way that they were. That wasn't I'm being awful and I'm just not trying hard enough. So in that respect, it was a massive relief. And I think when I got the diagnosis, like, I was quite hopeful that things were going to be different and things were going to change. And then now we know what the challenges are, we can work out what to do about them. So I didn't have a follow-up appointment with the team that diagnosed me because I'd moved county.
Yeah.
And so when I went to that doctor, I went in with my parents, and the response that we got was, "You've got your diagnosis, what more do you want? Go away and Google it." So it was like hopeful of there's going to be lots of support now that we know what's going on, to, oh, your support is Google. Well, I've already Googled it all.
Yeah, there's that gap between mental health services and autism services, isn't there?
And I guess, and I'm only making a bold statement, as James
No.
often does.
Never.
No.
But you know, as someone who again, it's not about me, but as someone who also had like there was nothing there, so you just got on with it. Seems like is that where you get your growth from? Because you can imagine, I can imagine sitting there and that happening. You can go either way.
Yeah,
And
it
you-
speaks to a lot of strength too.
Aye, strength and
keep
growth
going,
and
yeah.
understanding that you know it's got you to here. And again, well, it's your story. How did it transpire? Is this where you get your strength? Is what I'm trying to ask in a long way around it.
I mean, yes, but it doesn't, like, I don't know, it doesn't give me strength. It just demonstrates how strong somebody can be, and you don't necessarily want that strength to be challenged.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, because it hasn't worked out the way that people might have expected, like, I went to uni, I then moved to a different uni that was smaller and that I thought would be more suited to me. I made it to third year and then couldn't finish that, was taken out on mental health grounds again. And then I've been able to finish my degree through the Open University. So it's the most similar degree I could do at each place. So I ended up with a degree in environmental science from the OU.
Well done.
And that's been, it came out of necessity of, I started it and I wanted to finish it. I didn't leave because I couldn't do the academics. It was to do with the support and the understanding.
Yeah, I was about
And
to ask.
once I
was
got
that-
my diagnosis, I didn't get my diagnosis till I'd left my second uni. And that did open up support. So I had somebody through the Disabled Students Allowance, and I had a study mentor person that was able to help me through that. And it's much the same with the business side of things. I wanted to work a traditional job. I thought I was going to be an academic and go away doing research. That wasn't going to play out, I realised. But then I was working for other people, and then it kept not working out. So the way for me to have a job and be financially independent and to be able to maintain my living independently as well was to make myself a job. If other people don't understand and can't accommodate, well, surely I need to do it for myself. And so that was the intention of me starting the business. When I started up in Oban, I got my flat pass through environmental health and started baking in my kitchen, selling through Facebook, testing out recipes at a community cafe where I was teaching other people to bake.
Nice.
And then the landlord sold the flat that I lived in. So that was a bit of a challenge. So that's how I moved down to the Borders, because my parents had then moved to the Borders. So I came down here, tried working for some other people again, and then it was at New Year, it was January during COVID, and I was at an art session, and they're like, draw a picture of your dream for 10 years' time. I drew this picture, and we went back on the Zoom call like half an hour, an hour later, and like, show us what you've done. So I showed them a picture, and it was like a cafe table with a plate on it with a thing that was half a cupcake but half a patisserie with like the different layers and all the different flavours. And it got an award on the wall, it got a menu board, and then it got like a shelf of Prosecco bottles. Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
It's funny how these little moments that you don't realise are going to be so pivotal then are.
So
Yeah.
I drew that, and they were asking me, oh, so what's this and what's that and what's this and what's that? And I had answers for it all. I'm like, you've not just come up with this just now. What is this? And this was also the same person that was supporting me through uni. So
Nice.
they knew me, and they were just like, where's this come from? What's this all about? And so they were able to support me in putting a plan together of what I would like to do, and then what the first steps are of how to do that. And then there's a bunch of different people all involved at different times, and a lot of encouragement from a lot of people. I was volunteering with the Rural Youth Project, and I was one of the digital champions for the south of Scotland on the Smart Village. So it was one of the organisers there was like, Rachel, there's this business competition, and you can win funding. I was like, oh, but, and it was called Young Innovators. I was like, that's not me. Why have you sent me this?
Yeah.
And And so without other people's encouragement and realising what I was trying to do, and them being able to translate that into how the rest of the world speaks about that kind of thing, I wouldn't have been where I am. Because I entered that competition. It was the Innovate UK Young Innovators Awards, and I ended up as one of the 5 people in Scotland to win an award.
Congratulations.
Well done.
So, thank you.
So that wee bit of paper there, that painting you drew, you've, I don't believe in coincidences, you know, like you've obviously you've had something in your mind, you went for it, you got the awards, and you keep getting awards because I keep seeing you popping up everywhere. But you know, if you want something and you go for it, having the skills and being able to get it is what the challenges that people like us we come up against. So well done, man. And it's like one of the things where if you do want it, you have to work for it. It's not nobody's saying you've not worked for it. That's the hard work in between.
There's a real necessity to it as well. It's not just I'm a super strong person and I can get what I want. It's the way that the world is. That was the only way that I could see that I would be able to be financially independent.
And I think you made an interesting point there about the kind of emotional catching up between having that amazing vision and the clear focus, and then actually seeing that it was possible. And the importance of those people that can lift you up.
And we need a lot of them. They need to balance out the other people.
As I say, I keep saying it. We're in your houses, we're in your taxis,
and I think
we're
that's
in your
part
factories.
of exactly. And I think that's what part of what this is. You know, it's and the Neurodivergent Entrepreneurs Network. It's about everyone supporting each other and seeing the value of each other, but then also in ourselves
and giving it away as well, innit? And showing people it's all about giving away what you've got.
I think this is an opportunity to ask a slightly different question. So we're sitting in a glass box in a Soso business centre, and we're talking to the person whose idea this was.
Yes.
What is the importance of having a Soso there? What does that mean in terms of support and business, and how does that work?
So I mentioned the Young Innovators Award that I got, and that was like the real starting point of the bakery. And that award, there was £5,000 of funding, but then there was also a living allowance for 2 days a week so that I could stop the part-time work that I was trying to do whilst I was finishing my studies. But what I wrote about in my application is the most important part was that you get an innovation champion for a set for a day or fortnight. You had this support, and my innovation champion ended up being Tara. So Tara is the business coach for youth-led enterprises at SOSI. So that's how I was introduced to SOSI. So I worked with Tara throughout that year, and I can't remember if it was during that year or if it was just afterwards. It would have been just after that award had finished, but we were still working together, and we still are working together. And Tara was invited to the board of SOSI to present about some diagram of the technical ways that the support works. But instead of going along and talking about this diagram, it was, well, I'm going to show you this diagram in action. Asked me to go along to the board meeting. So I went along, and I was to explain my journey and how things had happened before that hadn't worked out, and what was different now that's made them work out for me, so that they could learn from that journey, so they can do more of the things that are helpful and learn from other people's experience. And it was at that board meeting that I was like, these are the things that have happened. And one of the stories that I told them was when I was in Oban, I'd won a competition up in Inverness from Create Highland about presenting a business idea, and then they could give you some initial funding and support. So I was directed to a support agency in Argyll and Bute that would help me to progress with my idea. And the response from the person I was assigned to was, well, what on earth makes you think you can run a business? If you can't work for anyone else, what makes you think you can do it for yourself?
Wow.
Clanger. Yeah.
It's a really hard thing to do, and it is a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
But
And was that,
I was
did they sort of specifically relate that to neurodivergence?
at the time I didn't know I was autistic,
Okay.
so that was based on my
Yeah.
mental health,
Wow.
which my understanding now is that was all around being unsupported and not understanding my neurodivergence.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So indirectly, yes. But I went away and I was like, well, can I do this? Maybe I can. Like, what on earth do I do? And I couldn't find an example to go back to and go, look, I can do it. Like,
Yeah.
I just didn't know where to look and I couldn't
Yeah.
find it. And that was something that I'd said to Susie. I was like, that's really valuable in being able to progress. It might not have taken me so long if I'd been able to find somebody
Yeah.
at that point and say, look, this is possible. Somebody like me
Mm.
is doing something
Mm-hmm.
by themselves and being successful. And this is how they're being successful. So in that board meeting, Susie, the board members and their CEO, Jane, were really supportive, and they have been since then. So it's been bubbling along in the background, just waiting for its time to come together and pop
When
up.
it's ready, isn't it?
So
And here we are.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I think we mentioned previously about when the student is ready, the teacher appears,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and vice versa. And
We
we're
also
all each other's teachers.
absolutely. We also mentioned, or I mentioned in my episode that we just filmed, that as you just said, there isn't any. Well, there is now, but there wasn't any neurodivergent out there.
Examples,
Neurodivergent
yeah.
examples that we could go.
Yeah.
Relatable
Yeah.
examples.
Because it's quite new that people are being, openly neurodivergent entrepreneurs. As society kind of changes and it becomes safer.
Yeah. That is safer. As I keep saying it, we are out there. It's like there's people who have yet to discover. That's the people who are really
Yeah.
this podcast, and people who are trying to understand it. Like everything you've just said there is like would take somebody on a journey, but they only need to ask. But who do they ask? So you've just literally gave it there. That's so important that I keep saying it. The people who are in front of us, like Rachel, walking in your footsteps. If we walk in your footsteps, we'll get what you've got. But not forgetting the people who are coming in behind us. Neurodivergent
Absolutely.
people who have yet to find the way. That's even more important. And as long as we do what we do, they'll get what we've got.
And also, I just think, just going into the break before we come back, I think it's very. You see, I'm not being interviewed now, so I can do the
You're
transcribing
all
thing. It's actually very important to see that, with full respect, it's not a diversity thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to present a plan to somebody, and it's another thing for them to change how they operate because of the strength of
Yes.
your plan, which is why we find ourselves in this wonderful glass box in a business centre, talking to, in my mind, the first to do it.
Yep.
And now we are now part of the NEN, which is Neurodivergent Entrepreneurs Network, which is something that did not exist how many months ago?
Like one.
Not even a month.
1, 2.
Thursday.
And
So
we're all very excited
babies.
about it and connecting with everybody else.
it's very, very new. So when we come back after the break, because we need to, very much like
Cake.
old records, yes,
Yes.
we need to eat cake.
Yeah.
And give the camera a rest.
And we also need to switch the record over to hopefully the A side, as it were. So join us when we come back, when we can continue the discussion with Rachel. And welcome back.
So I was wondering, just to circle back to the support that you're receiving, and how it affirms your neurodiversity.
So I think there's a couple of different examples. So one is my business coaching with Tara, and the support that I've had through Susie has been very individualised. Before I had that, it was a lot more, here's a big group workshop for people doing a business, and you could ask a disability question and they're like, oh, that's niche, we'll come back to that maybe later if somebody happens to know an answer. And then combine that with but I'm a social enterprise, I don't have shares, and all that kind of bit. I was like, I just don't understand how these workshops fit with what I'm trying to do. And I couldn't take those generalized examples and make them relevant to me. I was like, what is the point of this? And I was told, oh, well, you just have to keep showing up to these to be eligible to apply for funding through us. I was like,
okay,
well, great, but it's actually not relevant. And I ended up not completing that type of course anyway. So the support with Tara has been very specific just to my business, because it's been one-to-one support.
Yeah, good.
But also bringing in other people as and when they've had the expertise that I've needed. But that's all been facilitated through Tara, rather than, oh, here's a thing to go and Google. It was, right, we'll have a look at this, we'll work this out together.
That's awesome.
And then another example was one of the pitching competitions that I was in. So when I was in Scottish Edge, I'd made it through to the finals and I had to pitch to a panel of judges. And I was really worried about doing my pitch and it being timed, and you've got like this long you've got this long in front of the judges, this is how long your pitch is going to be, this is how long you've got for the questions and how to answer it all. And I wasn't having the best time at the time. And so it was more difficult than it is now to just be on command, just like, right, go, ready, set, speak.
That makes sense.
So they were really, really supportive. And for that pitching thing, I was able to have my pitch pre-recorded, and I had it as a video ready to play if anything went wrong.
That's a really nice backup catch. Yeah.
And just by them being that understanding about the challenges that I was having, and knowing that I had that backup, like, I was able to do my pitch and just did my pitch as normal in front of the judges.
Brilliant.
And then I knew that when it got to the questions, if there was anything that I hadn't understood or wasn't able to come up with the answer for quick enough, I could follow that up with an email. As it was, the questions were fine. I managed all of the questions, bar maybe the final one I got a bit confused on, because the terminology that got used just threw me a little bit.
People like to ask multiple questions in one question in that sort of situation, don't they?
Yes. And then I got confused with like an analogy to do with a pressure cooker, and I was like, how is my business a pressure cooker? But apparently I'd given a good enough answer. So
Good.
Yeah. I still delivered the same as everyone else delivered, but I had been given accommodations in how I achieved that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked a little bit before about how there are often a lot of coping strategies that are behind appearing in front of other people, as if you don't need those strategies, but they are very important.
Yeah.
I guess, even you're saying there's like asking for help as well. We struggle to ask for help because we said earlier that, you want to do it ourselves. We want to do that. But I guess that what you've just said there is that do ask for help, and there isn't a lot of SOSIs out there. That's the truth of the matter, So there needs to be a lot more SOSIs. We've only had a small interaction with the guys, but what we learned in that short term, thanks to yourself, was a lot of knowledge, man, in a short space of time. No jargon. Spoke to us like a human being with neurodivergency. Yeah. And it was real chat, man. It was like, you need more places like that, I got to 41 years old and I don't know how, but if there was a SOSI there, it would have been right in the heart of trying to achieve something. So well done.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Next question, Michael.
you want me to say something after that? No, I agree. I think that it's not just finding support, it's finding the correct support.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And I think that's why asking for help is so difficult, because there are those experiences where it's like, well, no, you can't do that. And there's not that middle ground of actually having the steps to work out that you can do things.
Mhm.
You have to kind of take that leap, and it's not really fair.
I remember I was the keynote speaker for an event for Young Enterprise Boarders at their finals, and I was asked to give a speech there, and I was to finish it off with a key piece of advice for the young
Okay,
people.
yeah.
And my piece of advice was not to accept the support that you're given, but continue saying no and seeking the support that you actually need.
Oh, I love
How,
that.
how
That's
did that go down as a
beautiful.
concept?
How did that
How
feel?
did that work out? It was a
I mean, it makes sense.
Mm.
People assume that the support they're offering is the support that you need,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and if you go along with it, they know no different.
Yeah.
And I've
And then you
turned
get into
down-
those situations where it's like they're doing everything they've been told should help you,
Mm.
but it doesn't help you.
Yeah.
And then often the response will be, well, you're obviously not doing it right.
I've turned down a lot of
Yeah.
support. I've been finalist in competitions and then withdrawn and gone, no, this is not where I need to be. And it's, if I'd said yes to all of those things and been trying to do the things that weren't working for me, I don't think I would have made it to here.
Mm.
And there's
That's
a
a
lot
big
of support
statement.
out there. So it's very scary to say no to something that's
Yeah.
offered, but actually something else comes in and fills that space.
I think as well, it's like you gave me the feel there, because challenging things, I struggle to challenge things. I challenge myself, but when it comes to challenging something, but it's exactly how you said that there, you know, if you accept what's just in front of you, that's all you'll ever get. You know, it's like, and if you don't, take a chance and take that leap of faith, as they call it. I hear it getting said all the time, and just go in and challenge. So, as it does sound scary when I'm saying it, like
again,
challenging.
it's coming back to that
confrontation,
strength, isn't it, of saying, no, actually, I do deserve that.
Aye.
And that's a pretty cool statement to make.
It's knowing what you need.
Yeah.
It's survival. It's
Yeah.
something. It's somewhere between fight or flight
I was going to come to that because exactly, it's about you
and
shouldn't.
survival.
You shouldn't need to be
Yeah.
the person who works out exactly what you need.
I haven't always known what I needed, but I've known what didn't feel right and been able to go, no.
Yeah.
And then
Nice.
that makes a space for something else to come in, which might be better, might be worse. If it's worse, you get rid of that too. And if it's better, you're like, thank you very much. And then, but then that can change over time as well. So what was really supportive at one point, as the business has then grown and developed,
True.
the support that I've needed has changed.
I feel it's probably just for me to say before we move on to the next question, because James has wheelbarrowed his Rachel analogy out in front of me, in front of you, in front of Kat, in a lift, in a cafe, in this room. When Kat introduced me to you, and I've said this to you before, it was framed as, I have a friend and the friend runs a bakery. And I went, oh, it's going to be small. If somebody goes to get a pickup from your bakery, it's huge.
Yeah. It's
industrial and it's huge, and there's space for everything, and it works. And I don't think that you, because you're very humble and modest, like, it's a bakery, it's a full big
It's
thing.
fantastic.
And it's all shiny and it's amazing.
So
And the cakes are very good as well.
You mentioned there that it's industrial.
Mm.
I don't think I mentioned that at the start. So the bakery is not a cafe. We don't fill up a display cabinet for people to come in and pick what they want. The bakery has been purposefully designed to be a wholesale bakery first and foremost, because I'm autistic and because I didn't want lots of people coming in and out all the time, I wanted something that was more predictable. So when we've got our wholesale customers that order this, and this every week, or this set of trays on this week and this other set of trays on the other week, it's more predictable. I know what's going to be happening. I can then plan how to make the things. And that is directly linked to me accommodating my own neurodivergence in the way that I set the business up.
So cool.
Well done.
I think you've actually answered 2 and 3. You're making my job so much easier. You're just answering questions that I haven't asked.
Excellent.
So, I mean, what do you really value about being neurodivergent?
I think my parents would call it stubbornness.
I would call
it
stubbornness.
determination.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like being able to see something that I don't think is right, like the experiences that I had in education and employment a lot of the time, and then not just going, oh well, like,
that's
it's like,
brave.
I want to make it different. I want to make that right in whatever way that I can. So when I was like my intention behind setting up a bakery was to create myself a job. But then later on I found out about, that was when I was back in Ubin, and then later on I had worked at a social enterprise, learned more about social enterprise, and it was during COVID, and I forgot what the question was, but you're getting the story anyway.
What do you
No, you're
value?
getting the story
This is
anyway.
great. It's good.
Sorry.
The tangent has begun.
It was during COVID, and we always have macaroons for the New Year concert. And the places that we usually got them from were all closed. I didn't want to make them because I didn't want to make all the different flavours. I just wanted them to arrive and be delicious. And it was during that Googling that I came across a social enterprise bakery. So when I saw on the heading of their menu bar that they'd got a social impact report, I was like, but you're a bakery.
Yeah.
How does that work? Went in, had a reread, and I was like, I want to do a bakery. Why would it not be a social enterprise?
Yes.
It just made sense. The purpose of it, the purpose of me having a business was for my
Bigger.
own independence. It wasn't to make my millions. And actually, to be able to do that and by solving a problem for myself, be able to support other people in a similar situation, like it just made sense.
It makes me emotional when you talk about that because it's really cool.
We haven't even touched on the gluten-free thing yet,
Yes.
which is
It's very exciting.
it's exciting, but it's something that I didn't obviously. However many months ago, I was not exposed to gluten-free
It's not radioactivity.
things. No, but I mean, like, I'm a guy from the north. A cake is a cake. Like, I'm not. You know,
Unless it's a balm cake.
Yeah, but it's. I'm not. I wasn't used to the sort of changing. I mean, you've heard the story when my dad ordered almond milk for the first time. We had an argument. So to actually, so what are you doing? Milk is milk. But the gluten-free thing we haven't discussed yet. So this is it's a gluten-free bakery.
There
As
are many
standard.
levels to the amazingness of the bakery.
I think there's a lot of parallels between the bakery part, which is the cakes, which are gluten-free, and the neurodivergent part, which is the social impact side to the bakery. Because the reason that it's gluten-free is because I've required a strictly gluten-free diet for medical reasons since last 19 or so. I've lost count.
Yeah.
A lot of years.
So like teenager child.
Yeah, midway
Yeah.
through high school.
Okay.
So it's, for me, the biggest thing wasn't missing the cakes. It was everywhere that cakes are involved. So it's like somebody's birthday, you bring
Yeah.
a cake and you're not a part of that celebration.
Yeah.
It's like, why aren't you eating my cake? Well, because I can't eat it. And it's the things that you miss out on. It's that kind of inclusivity and the freedom around food. I think there's a lot of parallels there between like the dietary restrictions and the inclusion that we do or don't experience as neurodivergent people in traditional workplaces as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that feeling othered by difference. As a fellow celiac, I also don't
And let's
eat.
be honest, when you're in a shop, have you ever been in a gluten-free aisle? It's a whole
Yes.
yeah. And
That's
now
where I
you
get
have.
food.
I'm speaking
Regular
to.
recurrence.
Sorry, I should have. We've been here all day. Instead of just asking you, I should just have.
Okay, yes.
Have you? Yes, I have. Every day.
I was
But,
once lost in
Please
that.
write in with your reports.
But the point they'll use that because that's just the humour of the show. But it's another thing I was exposed to. The sort of free from aisle, it's somewhere between depression and manicness, because you realise the amount of things that aren't readily accessible. Bread, cake. I mean, they exist, but they're wildly different.
Yes.
But they don't have to be.
Exactly.
They really don't have to be.
Exactly.
And that's the opportunity.
So it was 2014 that I was in Paris, and I'd heard about this gluten-free patisserie on Facebook groups, and I was like, need to go there, and got there, and like we'd been walking around Paris, amazing cake displays, and very jealous of them. We went to this other place and walked in, like stood outside. I was like, oh, made a mistake here. It's like, well, we'll go in and we'll ask where their gluten-free things are. So we'd gone in and was like, do you have anything that's gluten-free? I'd read on Facebook that you had gluten-free stuff. And they're like, everything. It's all gluten-free. And it just looked like all the other patisseries. I was like, how on earth do you pick? That's a good thing about being gluten-free. You have to make less decisions, usually. So I wasn't used to making
Restaurants
decisions.
are much easier.
Well,
like,
you have one for the
everything.
gluten-free there, isn't it?
Lunch, dinner, breakfast, yum.
And I think that's part of, the joy of what you do is that there is so much choice.
Yeah.
And it is rare and it's awesome.
There's so much choice now.
And there will be more choice.
Yes.
The range is growing every day.
I think one of the first times I met you, I said you could be the Linda McCartney of. I mean, it's a market that God bless Linda McCartney, but I mean, you could. There's a whole sector that's needed.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
And I think. Anyway, yes, there isn't a bigger fan than the three of us in the room. We can't be objective about it. We are fueled by Frangipane. That will be a shirt, I think, that is
absolutely,
on offer.
definitely, 100%.
Just while we're on the subject of amazing gluten-free confectionery and baking, is now the time to talk about the trip to Dorset?
What would you like to know?
Well, it is an award-winning
Yes.
in glossy magazines
Indeed.
thing.
Yes. So we're invited to submit some cakes for judging, but they were for being judged in Dorset. So because of the shelf life of freshly baked products, and we wanted them to arrive as cakes and not as trifle. Cakes were hand delivered to Dorset. Wow. So me and my dad as my co-pilot, we drove down to Dorset.
Road trip.
And we submitted some cakes. So we've won a Great Taste Award for our sticky spiced fig flapjacks.
Which tastes like Christmas.
Oh, it does.
It's
We tasted
amazing.
it under the tree, didn't we? At the,
We did.
The picnic. I had 3 bits just to make sure it was nice.
So did I.
Yes.
Although I already knew.
There was a moment where I, because we like to support all different businesses, but cakes, we lose all objectivity.
Absolutely.
So when I presented the award-winning thing to my folks, I had to explain to my folks that I did not make them. And I failed as a human. I brought it in, but it tastes of Christmas. So you've got a title to defend next year.
No pressure.
No pressure whatsoever. But this is from an idea to seeing a need to then putting the correct support for you in place. to then it's night and day.
It's determination.
It really, really is. And I'm ending on a positive to go into part 3. But this is what can be achieved.
Yeah.
This is
Absolutely. Inspiration to us all.
with a lot of elbow grease.
Yeah.
Because it's still you. It's other people around that are supporting.
Yeah.
But it is still you doing it. What is next for the Frangipane Bakery? Is it going to I'm just asking for a friend. Like, are you going into like savoury? I mean, is it?
It's a different oven.
Is it? I think it is. Oh, okay.
Bread would be in a different oven.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just nod like I know. Yes. Yes.
Sorry, I only know that because we've had this conversation.
Sandwiches, please.
Yeah, an oven is not just an oven. So we're continuing to develop our range of products. We've recently introduced our lemon drizzle loaf cakes as well for corporate hospitality orders. So we cater for, as well as, so we cater for corporate events, like company board meetings, like hosting guests and that sort of thing, as well as supplying cafes and restaurants and hotels.
Awesome.
So, yeah, finding new places to spread the joy of the Frangipane cakes.
Wholesale to all of the places. I like
And we're working on mail order delivery so that we'll be able to.
That's just life complete.
That's it.
Sorry,
That's just amazing.
I'm just at home. Oh, it's the guy from the mail. Oh, it's cake. Oh, yeah. That's you again,
I shall
Mr.
have some
McIntosh.
Frangipane
Yes.
tomorrow.
Yes. Your box of cake, my dear. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's me. So that is
That's half of the developments
right.
because
Just
there's
half.
just about every part to the business has 2 parts.
Ooh.
So there's the business part, the income generating part, which is the baking and the cakes, but then there's also the social impact work as well, which is what the income from the cakes then funds. So we're working on our social impact work at the minute, and we're working to develop an employability program because I've been, with the challenges that I faced in traditional employment, I did have interactions with a number of different employability services.
Yeah, services,
Things that are meant to help me get a job, and they didn't.
Meant.
They didn't really. This is like the bakery has happened despite them, not because of them. And I think when you look at the statistics about the rates of employment for autistic people, and you look at how long there's been employability programs, they don't really seem to work for us.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So
I don't think there's any seam about it. They just don't work.
But what an interesting insight you must have, having engaged with those services, but then also now kind of sculpted the support that you do need.
Yeah.
And being able to see those differences.
I think there's something really valuable about the employability support that we're working to develop being led and delivered by lived experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Peer support is just
We've
different.
got because of the stage that the business is at the minute, not all of our work is funded by the cakes at the moment. So we do have a funding bid in, and that includes you 2 guys coming in to help deliver parts of the support.
Absolutely.
Because it is so important to the bakery that it is all led and delivered by neurodivergent people to be able to support neurodivergent people.
That's how we learn that. That's how we grow.
Absolutely.
And I just eat cake.
Well, I'll be there for the cake.
Delegation.
As well. Don't make cakes.
You're there for
Yes.
moral support.
You're going to be baking at some point.
working, eating cake.
Bring the cake tester.
God delivers. I signed for it. I've managed to do this. So join us in part 3, where we'll probably be discussing more cake.
Should attempt to tangle
And
the tangents
Yes,
into something that makes sense.
yes, yes, absolutely. So please join us in part 3. to part 3 of We Speak Tangent with Rachel.
Yes. So we touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to kind of drill in a little bit more about any experience that you have of working with other neurodivergent entrepreneurs and the value of that.
So I think we've talked about the value in peer support, and that's been huge. And there was a Facebook group that I was a part of for neurodivergent entrepreneurs, and it was through that group that I found out about G. So G did my branding for the bakery.
And our branding.
Branding for the bakery. And that is still one of my favourite things that I've done in setting up the bakery. So before I found out about G, I had spent, no joke, months with my business coach trying to drag a design brief out of me, question by question, so that it could go to a designer to do the branding. And then I found out about G, and the way that they do, so G is autistic, and the way that they do the branding is incredibly efficient, does not require a big fancy brief written in advance, because that's just not a friendly way to do things when your brain works like this. And they don't work on multiple projects at a time. They sit with you, and live, right in front of you, they take on all the feedback, and together you come up with the brand. So within an hour and a half, we had the branding. And just seeing how easy and simple that was for me to be able to do, having spent months and months trying to do just the very first baby step of that process in a more traditional way, like that was just really, really cool. And I don't think that could have happened in that way with somebody that wasn't autistic and thinking in the same way.
There's just something
that I
about being
think-
on the same wavelength, isn't it?
We just move at a fast pace sometimes as well, and so it's nice when you meet somebody who moves at an equal pace,
absolutely.
and it just all happens in transitions.
You can just say what you think. There's that freedom and that openness there, and you're not trying to conform to what you think is expected of you, because the way that they've approached the whole process is already very different. So you don't have the standard rules to try and conform to. So it was very new ground. It was making it up as I went along. So then you default to being you rather than who you think you have to be, because you don't know what you have to be in that scenario. So
Interesting. No,
Unmasked.
that's really cool.
Unmasked is correct.
Aye, unmasked, aye. We go silent because it's something that just every single one of us is like nodding our heads because we were right there, man, and it is. It's back to that appreciation as well, and then having a product at the end that everybody's joined in and went, wow. But knowing how it became and how it started, and then that in a short space of time, aye. Well done.
So, is there any, just for folks out there that are coming down from a sugar rush after thinking about eating gluten-free things, are there any sort of tips for people that you would pass down, as it were?
what sort of tips? Like take the eggshell out of the eggs with another
When you are
eggshell?
making a cake. Now, are there any sort of neurodivergent tips or tricks for people?
So we've been talking about those little,
Nuggets.
or not little, coping strategies that go on behind the scenes that allow you to achieve what it is that you do, which might be support, or it might be I talked about on my calendars.
So I think I'll come back to my car. I need to remember my car. Tips and tricks. Like saying no to the support that's the wrong support has been huge.
I think that's such a brave thing to do. That's still landing for me.
Things like I get to choose what I wear, so like I don't wear shoes in the bakery. I will be running around in my socks. I've got a grippy floor, so it's all fine. And it doesn't matter what I do in the bakery because my norms become the norms of the bakery.
Yeah. I think you also mentioned to me the other day about cleaning products.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're just at the stage where we're looking to get a cleaner in so that then instead of me doing the cleaning, I can then be making more cakes. So when we're speaking to the cleaner, they're like, so do you want me to use my own products or do you have products you want me to use? Like, I've got these lovely smelling products. I was like, nope, not having that. I don't know what they smell like, but I'm not having them.
No smells.
We're having the things that I've already chosen and that I'm used to. So that's something.
Is that a neurodivergent thing?
I think
Smells.
it's a sensory
Smells,
thing.
smells a massive thing for me.
Absolutely.
Like,
I think when I've been in hospital, that's been one of the hardest things. It's just being stuck in the miasma.
it feels unnatural. Some of this like smells. Totally
Okay.
it resonates.
Yeah. Which I guess brings us back to your car.
My car. So it's like springtime. I've had this idea in my head for years. Like 2 cars ago, when I lived in Oban, I had this plan to put a bed in the back of my car so that I could go camping. And I finally did it this spring.
Nice.
And so I've taken the back seats out of my car, put a double mattress in from IKEA, and we made like the foil bubbly
Window inserts. Yeah,
those things,
cool.
so that it's not light and it keeps the warmth in and keeps the sun out.
Yeah. Nice.
So we've done that, and being able to just get out and about has been amazing.
But have a little safe space like a snail.
Yes.
I also have a bed in my car. So, yeah.
I don't.
It's the way
Neither
to
do I. I
Sorry.
feel as if I'm missing out.
Yeah, we are the odd
You might be a bit
couple, though.
tall for your car. to be
Get a wee
fair.
Vauxhall and Gila. I don't think I can get a double anything in it.
You can barely sit in that. That's a box. But no, it's a new phenomenon. I think.
Freedom is what that screams to me. Is like a sense of freedom.
Absolutely.
and
You know.
being able to make use of the time that I have.
Yeah.
So I had been working more than was sustainable, and we've reviewed my working, and so I'm now working 4 days a week. So I do 3 days in the bakery doing all the baking, and then I've got another 2 half days on a Monday, Tuesday to do admin and meetings. So quite often I'll have those meetings and I'll be sat in the back of my car because I'll have gone off somewhere and been camping for the weekend, and I don't have to get back to a set place
Yeah. No,
to
that's
do
beautiful.
the admin.
Yeah.
And so being able to say yes to different opportunities, go and meet people, go and take Nico on adventures, just see different places, and the freedom that that's given me and the headspace that that's freed up has been huge.
It's
Yeah,
liberating
that's
as
pretty
well. It's like a liberation I'm hearing, because that's something that you want to be free, you want to be out there, and there's a conformity of all the other restraints, work, places, people, economic insecurity. So you kind of melting the stuff away. I want to go back because I can't get it out of my head. You know, you said about what you wear. As somebody who wears different stuff, like we were having a kind of tangent chat earlier. You know, people. I wear different stuff, and I've only recently, in the last couple of years, comfortable wearing this. Is that what you were saying? Like, you can wear what you want. You're like, I also have odd socks on, but you know, that's what I wear. I feel comfortable because I don't conform to what other people need to wear, and it took me a long time, as I've always been slightly different. But is it the same for yourself? Obviously, on a self-discovery mission. Kind of selfish of James for the podcast, but I want to know if other people think like this, you know, if other people are out there listening and they go, you know, I want to wear my own stuff.
I think the biggest thing for me has been the shoes. So not having to wear shoes is huge, and not having to make excuses about not wearing my shoes. Because I quite often used to go when I worked in an office, I would walk to work. And I would be like, oh, it might rain today, I'll just wear my wellies. And then I would take my wellies off at the door because although nobody wears wellies everywhere, so that gave me my excuse to take my shoes off.
Yeah.
Whereas now I don't need an excuse, I just take my shoes off.
It's a form of self-care, I think.
Yeah, totally.
It's partly, as you said, it's you, it's control, but it's also self-care. Being allowed to be your authentic self.
It's
In
setting
your actual
parameters that are
workplace,
not
yeah.
too overwhelming to function.
Expressionism, isn't it, as well? You're expressing.
I mean, there's still times that I wear things that I might not really want to wear from a sensory point of view, but I want to wear from the perspective of fitting in and presenting a certain image.
Yeah.
So like doing some presentations, I'll wear a more formal jacket, but then I remember this is another benefit to having like your life in your car. I came back from one of the presentations that I'd been doing, and we were doing some admin at the bakery, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. I was done, and I went out to the car, got my onesie out, soft, cuddly, fluffy onesie, went in the bathroom, got changed, and then all that admin got easier because I was comfy again.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. But I mean, just think about the self-awareness of that as well. To notice, oh, this is really hard. And I think a lot of times we're kind of conditioned to push through that in education, in school, and to just be like, oh, no, I just need to get on with this and push myself harder. But actually the self-awareness to step back and say, actually, no, I could just make this easier, and that's okay.
There's a real privilege in being in charge of the bakery. There's nobody there to judge me. I've got my support workers there, but they're not there to judge me. They're there to understand and make it all easier. So there's the awareness is the one thing, and also my support worker being like, Rachel, you're struggling. Like, what do we need to do? Do we need to go for a walk? I was quite overwhelmed from having been at an event already, and I think that kind of escalated the clothes issue.
Yeah, totally.
And sometimes it needs to get bad enough to register, and then it's easier to pick up again in the future. You're like, oh, that makes sense. This made me grumpy last time. What can I do about it this time? And then the people around me will also pick up on that.
That's really cool.
Setting a standard.
Yep.
So we are rapidly running out of recording time. So get this on your bingo card, folks. I'm about to ask a baker what their favourite cake is from their range. We have a few, all of them actually. There hasn't been one I've disliked royally, obviously. What is your cake of the week?
I'm going to go with milk chocolate and cherry brownie.
Nice.
Covered in cream and custard and cherries.
Oh, there you
like
go. You see, she's just upscaled it. I love it.
So that is the Frangipane cake of the week. And if we don't get to tell you in person, other than this room, thank you for helping with the show in terms of cake. And also thank you for coming
inspiration
up with the idea. That's why we are here.
And thank you so much for joining us for the chat.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So we've been We Speak Tangent in association with the under the umbrella of the Neurodivergent Entrepreneurs Network.
Indeed.
Thank you very much indeed to SOSE, the South of Scotland Enterprise. How many words can I say in a sentence?
Well, just listening and watching and nodding and listening and watching.
But thank you
for this studio.
Yes, the studio and the tech and the room. Thank you so much for viewing or listening, whatever your pleasure is. Hopefully we will see you next week. But for now, I've been Michael.
And I've been James.
I've been Kat.
And I'm Rachel.
Lovely to talk to you.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now.
Bye-bye.
So welcome back to part 4. Were there any other topics that you wanted to touch on or go into a bit deeper?
I think it would be really helpful to explain about my support workers. So I've mentioned them briefly, but it's one of the things that I found super, super helpful and also took a long time to find out about. So the more people that know about it, the better.
Awesome.
So I've got my support workers through Access to Work. So that's a government scheme that pays for the support that you need to mitigate your disability in the workplace so that you can remain in work. And they support people in traditional employment as well as people setting up their own businesses. And they support physical disabilities as well as non-physical disabilities. So through Access to Work, that's how I've been able to get my team of support workers. So I've been able to put together a team of people that each have a slightly different set of skills to make sure that I've got the support I need for doing everything. Because as a founder, you are the business, you have to be able to do everything. So for people to be able to support me, they need to have that knowledge as well, so that they're able to be effective in their roles. And some of the things that they do, some of it's like would be considered quite basic, but it's not basic when it's something that you struggle to do. So things like reminding me to eat, not get so focused in on my admin that I get to the end of the day and haven't had any lunch or haven't had
and then
anything
you
to
can't
drink.
function well the next day.
Yeah, totally get that.
So things that are considered quite basic in that respect, but then also summarising my emails for me so that I get the understanding that people are trying to put across, not diving into every single little nuance and words of
That's so
what
cool.
did that email mean. And then it means that I can give a really honest response back without having to put it through the filter of how do I say this in a way that's going to be understood right? I don't want them to misinterpret this. And that takes so much time. So having that kind of interpreter almost.
That sounds like it takes a huge amount of mental
Yeah.
labour away,
Yeah.
which must give you a lot more energy to be creative.
Yeah. And to just be able to keep showing up and keep working, because until this role, I haven't actually managed a full-time job sustainably. I mean, I guess it's not technically full-time anymore if I'm doing 4 days, but it's still a very chunky role.
Exactly.
And even though you're taking the days off, it's still in your mind, isn't it? It's just like you can't physically possibly not think about what it is you're achieving, especially the pace that you work.
Yeah.
So
I think it's something that will probably, as the episodes go on, it's something that we'll say over and over and over again, which is if you can find something that you can do really well, you should be able, if the conditions are correct, to find people that whose sole job, as well as being humans, is to do the things that somebody isn't as
and you said it there, like the
willing
conditions are correct. It's like, everyone can blossom and fulfill that unique potential, but if 90% of your brain space is taken up with things that, like you say, may seem basic but aren't, then that gets in the way of that showing up.
Things like you mentioned having 3 calendars. Like that is mind-boggling.
Thank
but
you.
one of the things
I've waited 2 episodes for somebody else to say that.
but I'm really lucky that I'm not having to try and navigate that by myself, because that's another one of my support workers' jobs, is that they're able to help with the organising side of things. So they're able to manage my calendar. I decide what I want to do, and they go, Rachel, to do that you would have to not do this or that. And then I can, whereas I just see a space in the calendar, go, it fits though. Like, no, but you need to prepare for that thing. You need to write up the thing for that. And don't take that into account, because I just see an empty space and go, yeah, I can do that. Not, can I do that with all the other jobs that also need to fit in?
But it is a colour-coded calendar.
Yeah, and that's so
Like,
cool
it's
to
full.
have.
Yeah.
Like to be able to have assembled that team,
Yeah.
which creates those conditions that are just conducive to
And
brilliance.
you can't live on cake exclusively forever.
well, I
You
could give it
can't
a
do
bash.
it.
We can try.
I'm up for the
I
challenge.
mean, eating is important,
But yes, good
it's-
nutrition is good, guys.
So yes, Michael, the dietitian, says eat stuff.
You were saying about being able to assemble the team, and I think there's something there as well, in that getting the Access to Work award is absolutely great and it's been
Yeah.
invaluable, but that's not the end of the road. So
Oh,
you
no.
need to then
Yeah.
assemble that team,
Mm.
and that's not been easy because of
Because
people's
that's your
misunderstanding.
responsibility after. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I've got this funding pot that sits with the DWP that people can then claim from to support me. So I needed to find people that were self-employed, willing to take on being paid through access to work, which is a claim back system rather than getting paid up front.
Yeah.
But just trying to find the people that understand the disability side of things, but also understand the business side of things. And when you have to advertise for a support worker, people automatically assume that that's like personal care tasks and that it's going to be undervalued and underpaid, and that's not the case with access to work.
Yeah,
And
it
so
takes
there's
that
a
special kind
challenge.
of vision of, you know, having the knowledge but also not putting you in a box.
Yeah.
It's the single biggest thing. It's like the biggest own goal in the history of time. When, if you, however you phrase it, support assistant, it's people automatically assume that it is exclusively personal care. So you lose the
Audience in some way.
you lose the audience, you lose the interest, because people are just like, it's personal care. So actually, that's a real takeaway from, that's the stuff that people don't talk about, which is we all need to live. Some of us require more adaptions or difference than others, but it's about doing it in the correct way and framing it. I think so much of the movement is framing.
Yeah, and again, it kind of tangents all the way back
It
round
does.
to that, you know, self-awareness of what you need and when there's something missing. Yeah.
So I've been given the task of asking the judgy question, which I don't normally ask, but we say we got distracted. We got distracted talking about cake. So to complete the circle,
As usual.
it's time to go back to talking about cake. So for those, I'm going to try and not look at Kat or Rachel for this question, because you may have got the Easter egg of, have you ever been to a gluten-free outlet? Why, yes, I have. Explain to me and the viewer/listener, hopefully there's more than one, but I keep it as viewer or listener. So what is gluten? What is gluten-free? What does that mean? What is it?
So gluten is a protein in wheat, barley and rye, and there's a similar protein in oats. And also oats, in the way that they're manufactured, are quite often cross-contaminated through the processing. So unless they're declared as gluten-free oats, they're usually considered
Processed
to
in the
contain
same
gluten as well.
factory. Yeah.
So gluten-free is not containing any of the gluten protein, and there's a legal standard for that, which is up to 20 parts per million, which is absolutely minuscule. It's
Not
less
a
than a
lot.
crumb in your
Yeah.
butter. So don't share your butter with other people that spread
Having
their
been a
toast.
victim of a crumb in butter. Yeah.
Keep your butter.
More than enough.
That's why at the bakery we've got 100% gluten-free premises. We don't make anything that contains gluten because we don't want the airborne flour to then be gradually settling out of the air and then contaminating the products that we're making. So the premises is 100% gluten-free, so that we can be sure that there's no cross-contamination and that it's safe for more people to enjoy.
And this, I'll try and phrase this in a judgy way. This isn't a choice thing. This is, if we are royal we, take me out of it. If people,
Are you trying to go into the allergy
if
question?
gluten-free folks are confronted with a crumb of gluten, it makes you incredibly ill.
Yep.
This isn't a sort of wake up on a
Incredibly ill.
Monday and
It's a lifestyle.
So there is a
It's
difference.
in the short term and the long
Yeah.
term.
Absolutely.
So it's in the short term, there's unpleasant digestive effects. But then in the longer term, it's actually breaking off parts of your intestines that can then lead to you becoming malnourished and not being able to absorb your nutrition effectively.
And it can take that one crumb. It can take 2 years for your intestine to recover.
from the one crumb.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's
So,
not a t-shirt.
So there is a difference between, so there's celiac, which
Yeah.
is an autoimmune condition, and a gluten allergy, which is slightly different. So it's a different pathway. So that's something that's kind of often misconcepted. So yeah, exactly. It's not that in that moment kind of reaction only. Mine massively sets off my chronic fatigue as well.
And
It's all about the feedback.
and now, like Michael's bit of useless information, there are, because we've had this chat away from this, there are scientists that are trying to come up with something to counteract the effects of. I'm not sure if it was sheep or but because. My thing is no, but
Where's this
Tangent
question going?
tangent happening right now.
This is a tangent because I think people are like, how can, because it's an adaptation, but it's also like 50-50. It's like if you get a crumb, as you say, you get really sick. So there is some scientists somewhere that are trying to sort of get rid of, or I'll just say that again. Okay, that was great. Thank you so much. Not all tangents make it to air, but crumbs do. So yeah. There are. What I was saying was there was. I'll just.
Are you on the gluten-free
in the
wheat
show
thing?
notes. Yes.
Okay.
It'll be in the show notes. There are people.
So there is Codex Standard wheat starch, which
There you
is
go.
gluten-free
Thank you.
because
we got that.
the starch is separate to the protein. So by using the wheat starch in some well-known branded products,
Very good.
They
Biscuits,
can-
generally.
yeah,
Yeah.
pizzas in the freezer and croissants in the freezer,
Okay. Yeah.
they are then closer to replicating the gluten counterparts, which is what people, for some reason, are expecting because it's the norm.
Yeah.
A bit like neurotypical
There
is
you
the
go.
norm.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's closer to replicate that because you've got the same starch, and then they're only trying to replace the protein part of the gluten.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any other topics that we haven't covered?
There's still cake left over there. So it keeps winking at me, and I'm thinking, I'm looking, so I'm going to eat the cake. Thanks.
It's
Bye.
gluten-free.
Thank
may
you.
as
It
well.
is. Everything is gluten-free.
So that is the end of part 4 and the end of this episode.
Fantastic. Thank you so
At last,
much.
going once, going twice, gone. Thank you so much. Hopefully,
Thank you,
we'll see
producer
you next
Amelia.
time.
Thanks, Amelia.